This is the 19th season of Bass Talk Live. BTL is presented by Bass Cat Boats, Strike King Lures, Aftco, Pro Guide Batteries, X-Zone Lures, Shoreline Boat and RV Repair, Spro, Gamakatsu, Big Bite Baits, The Bass Tank, Denali Rods, Beatdown Outdoors, and Sunline.
BTL coming at you.
Good morning and welcome to another exciting edition of BTL Bass Talk Live, where we are going to talk about bass fishing. Wrapping up August, which is hard to believe, the BPT, the Invitationals, the Elite Series, all history. All in the history book. Still three more Bassmaster Opens to take shape, and I think I believe there's a Toyota Series Championship, maybe a couple more Toyota Series. There's a lot of tournaments that are on the schedule across the country that started in January and typically wrap up in October and November, and that's kind of what we're going to talk about today. We have a Michael Mulone from Major League Fishing. He is now it's a new title for Michael. We'll bring him in right now. What's up, dude? Yeah, I got you. Thanks for jumping on BTL.
You bet. Thanks so much for having me.
New title this year, VP of Marketing and Business Development.
Yeah. It's a little bit of a change. I started the industry in 2006. Doing site selection for the events. I came from the hotel and CBB side. I actually was on the city side, bringing sports events to the destinations, and then joined in when Bassmaster owned ESPN. Actually started with the Great Outdoor Games and kind of did the all of the Elite Series site selection for a number of years, and then started with Major League Fishing when the Bass Pro Tour started up, and have been doing that, and then have kind of graduated of sorts to some different roles in the company. So wear a variety of hats. And then, of course, we merged with FLW in 2019 and still overseeing the site selection process and looking forward to getting into that. I have the really cool opportunity to work with Chris Hoover, who, was at FLW for, 20 years up until Major League Fishing purchased FLW, and has become just a fantastic friend. Together we've got, I'd hate to say it, but kind of close to 40 years combined of doing, site selection, and we kind of led the charge, and we're got a couple of the schedules out, got a couple more to come. But yeah, so I wear a few different hats, marketing, PR, oversee the Red Crest. We do some sponsor hospitality. We got a really cool sponsor event that we do in the spring that our anglers participate in. Go licensing and merchandise and a lot of different things, but we are running a gun, and even though it's the end of the season for us on the BPT and the Tackle Warehouse Invitationals, we still have got a lot of events coming up. Got the Toyota Series Championship, and just did some super tournaments we're doing, and things are very busy for us. We're planning for next year and beyond, and getting ready for Red Crest in March. So yeah, things are. There's no how it is. There's no rest for the year. When you're off season, there's no off season. It's just kind of what this industry is, think, tournaments are over. Yeah. Now you're working to get things going. So no stopping anything.
When does the schedule? So when did the work for the 2024 schedule start for you? I mean, were you working on that as soon, years ago for the 2024 schedule? Because I know it's not just hey, the year's over, now let's figure out where we're going next year. I've worked a little bit behind the scenes, and some of these places are 6, 12, 2 years in the making to get a place in advance. I don't think a lot of people realize what goes into site selection.
Yeah, there's a whole industry when it comes to youth and amateur and professional sports of how the site selection works, whether it's the AAU tournament that your kid's softball goes to and they play travel ball, or for the Super Bowl. And I've actually gotten to know some of the folks who work in the Super Bowl for different cities, from Houston and Tampa and New Orleans, now Vegas, and just seeing the whole process work. So there's a whole process that goes from what the city wants to do to review their assets and make a bid to those rights holders, Major League Fishing being one of them, to see, hey, listen, we want to bring your event to town. There are some destinations that we're working on that we know we're not going to get for 25, but probably for 26.
Wow.
So it's about, but realistically, it's about an 18-month process when it comes to how long it takes for everything. Chris Hoover just came back last week from a trade show in Minneapolis, and I'll go to a trade show that actually, in these trade shows, there's two or three of them we go to. The next one's going to be of all places in Florida. I live in Florida. So I'm going to drive to that one. So I'll kind of split up the duties on it. But we go and meet the cities. We go and talk to them. We have RFPs and sometimes videos, and depending on the setup of the trade show, where we go and they bid on our business just like they bid on other things. If it's the water department and a vendor's bidding on them, and these cities bid on this business because it drives economic impact, it drives future tourism. I'll never forget one of my conversations with some folks in Detroit. They said, after Major League Fishing came to town, and they saw what we did, they couldn't believe how many different license plates were at their boat ramps because we put them on a national audience, and that's the ripple effect of what happens with our tournaments.
I want to go back to these trade shows. So just like iCast or SHOT Show, where the vendors set up to get, and then the buyers come in, and then they figure out what goes in. So they have trade shows where the cities, so it'd be like the city manager, the Chamber of Commerce, and then they have the
tourism office, sports commission,
the tourism. Yep. So they have a budget, whether it's through grants or taxes or whatever.
Yep.
It's for city development or tourism. And they sit there and they try to, I don't want to use, it's fishing. We'll use the term. They try to lure business into their city. So you're walking around literally looking and talking with people, and you're seeing like, what are the things? Okay. Can we go through what makes a desirable venue? Like, so I'm thinking here, Michael, I'm thinking like what they've done at Green Pond Landing, at Lake Hartwell, and those tourism dollars. I'm thinking of Smith Lake and the facilities and how the city. I'm thinking
Decatur, Ingalls Harbor.
Yep. I'm thinking of what Grand Lake did with the development of Wolf Creek and the city of Grove and all that.
Yep.
But what are some things like when you're walking around that like are on the checklist? Because everyone lives around a lake and they're like, hey, I wish MLF or I wish the Elite Series would come here and I could watch them and they could see what they would do on mine. But what are some of the key things that all selected venues have to have in order to be considered even?
Well, but I'll get to that. But one of the things that's kind of interesting that a lot of people don't even realize about the tourism and events business is that not only is it for sports, but it's for state and national associations. It's for corporate events. It's for incentive travel. So if Mercury wants to do a incentive trip for their top sales guys, then and whoever sells the most gets an incentive trip to the Ritz-Carlton in Cancun. And that Cancun salesperson deals with only incentive trips. So that's high end stuff for that.
Okay.
And so it's across the board, not just for sports, it's for everything. For us, it's a bit of an anomaly because yes, there's lakes everywhere, there's rivers everywhere, but not everywhere. And that's kind of one of the cool things that we have is that we're not only coming there and bringing the participants, but we're putting them on television. So it has an added benefit to the destination. So first thing we do is obviously look for a healthy fishery, and how do you determine that? Especially if it's a place, and we'll let the schedule's out, but we'll talk about it.
We got some cool ones on the schedule this year.
Yeah,
you guys
so
nailed it.
We'll talk at Shawan River, I think I just got muted there for a second.
Nope, I got you.
Yeah, okay, cool. Not on anybody's radar at all, but we go through a whole process, and we'll talk about the process a little bit, but Marty Stone kind of keyed us in on that one. Marty, obviously being from North Carolina, one of our TV talent guys, kind of give us a heads up a couple of years ago and said, hey, you guys got to stay alert, see what's going on here. They're starting to catch some big weights. And, it was in fact, I took some notes to make sure I didn't forget the name of it. Eastern North Carolina Bass Challenge, where there was a tournament trail.
Okay.
And they had a tournament like in, I think, July of this year, and it still took over 20 to win. And, we're talking North Carolina, July, weight's going to be down this place is turning them out. So first thing is kind of look, if especially it's completely off the radar like this one, is see what other tournaments are doing. What's the Tuesday? What are the Tuesday nighters doing? What's going on with the regional tournament trails that are showing up there more frequently, and seeing that these local sticks are really putting it to it. So that's the first thing. Then we just need to make a phone call and start up as, hey, listen, we're seeing it. This is happening here. We'd like to know more about your destination. Do you have the hotels? What's the condition of the boat ramp? Do you guys have any interest in doing this? And is there any funding to do that? I love watching the keyboard warriors get out. It's like, oh, they're only going there for the money. We're talking, it's big dollars when it comes to it. But in the grand scheme of things, there's so many more dollars that go into it and so many more factors that are key to making it important. And so much so that we're actually having a podcast talking about how we pick fisheries, because it drives the industry so much when it comes to content, where we go, hey, we're going to use this bait, right down to the point where we've had sponsors say, man, you're not going to the north as much, and I'm trying to sell baits up north. And it gets into your psyche like, oh man, I got to think about what we're doing because of it. So there isn't just one thing. There's a lot of different cooks, a lot of different cooks during the soup, and that's all part of it.
Okay, so, but you did mention the economic impact, and I think it's a known fact that regardless of what organization you're with, whether it's the MPFL, BASS, or MLF, when you do select a site, you do get paid by that chamber to come there. You're basically going to say, hey, or present them with, hey, we can bring X number of hotel nights for X number of days with X number of economic impact, and then extrapolate that out. So you're saying we're bringing $1.2 million in, but then they give you a little. Does that vary, or is that just a standard? Are there certain ones where it's like, hey, we'll come there, but it's going to cost more because this is risky, or because it's further travel for all of us? Or is there like a standard across the board, like 20, you don't have the numbers, but 25 grand and we'll come there? Or is it kind of vary on case by case basis on what you're dealing with and what you're trying to get out of that event?
Yeah, it varies very, very much so. Not on the value or usually what they pay. We usually have we're usually kind of in that wheelhouse, but there are different things that sometimes destinations can do. For example, they might provide complimentary room nights because they've got a hotel that says, hey, if you give us these number of hotel rooms, we'll give you these complimentary, and put that to the package. They might pay for the angler meal, overnight security, porta potties, boat ramp fees, pay for all the permit fees for downtown, put a local festival on. That'll help us drive more revenue, because we'll be able then to get a title sponsor of the event because we know that's happening. So then that's going to help us generate additional revenue from that standpoint. So there's not just one thing. We shoot for a number. There's no trying to get around it. We're not ashamed of it. That's business. We're in the business of running tournaments to put on great content, to help our anglers, to help the industry, our sponsors, to give the fans great content. And I see so many times that people are putting down this process, and it's kind of funny, because what do we expect out of this? We're trying to put on the best product for our fans and for everyone, and we need to do what's right for the industry and for our business. So, it's not something that we're ashamed of doing, but it's also something that is actually much more transparent than people think, because we're working with some destinations that actually have freedom of information laws, that the numbers are out there, what it is. So it's not a closed process. We do keep it pretty tight to the vest, though. I mean, obviously, when you saw the schedule, a lot of people saw the schedule. There were some surprises on there that we're kind of proud of, that they're a little bit off the radar, and things that didn't happen. We've been working on this for quite some time, so it's not like we're flaunting anything, or we're trying to say that we're trying to get as much money. It's not just about the money. It's about the content. It's about what's good for the industry, what's good for the fans to watch. Because we go to a fishery and they give us $300,000, which is not the number, but if they give us a ton of money and then they don't catch any fish, and
it's counterproductive.
It's no good. Yeah.
I want to bring this point up, because I've heard this a lot over the last couple of years, and you kind of talked about the process, so you kind of explained it through the process. But you're seeing, and obviously you're seeing a lot of schedule. So we'll use Lake Eufaula in Oklahoma as an example.
Yeah.
They had an MPFL that's coming there,
Mhm.
an invitational event that Kelly
Yep.
Jordan won, and a Bassmaster Open.
Yes.
And I've seen on the top level guys going, oh, well, MLF is intentionally scheduling the same fisheries on top of Elite Series events, or Elite Series scheduling on top of MLF events.
Sure.
And I think kind of based on what you have just talked about, what you're seeing is that, A, you can't create a schedule like that to schedule on top of someone, because these talks go on a year, 18 months in advance. And B, a lot of the same fisheries, it sounds like, based on what you said, is because they have an active chamber of commerce. They have someone in that chamber. They have the money for it, the funding for it, and they see the value of professional fishing. So they want to bring as much to that community as possible. So it's not seeking out communities that the tournaments are at. It's them seeking out both or all three of
Absolutely.
the organizations and bringing it there. So it's not a deal where you guys are competing against each other. It's a deal where there's funds available on this. They want to bring it to you. They have the facilities, and therefore you have multiple organizations at the same time and in the same seasons. Is that a fair assessment?
It's a very fair assessment. And I'll go 2 steps further. First, we're not just competing against other tournament organizations for those dollars, but all those other sports that I mentioned: softball, baseball, volleyball, track and field. If it's a big enough destination where they have multiple facilities that can host multiple events, then we're not the only game in town. They might have a lake and a baseball and a softball and an indoor multiplex facility.
Yeah.
So we're not competing just against the other tournament organizations. The other thing that, and I love this kind of back and forth, and I kind of pulling the onion back. We don't want to be on the same dates, and I would imagine, in working there for the better part of 13 years or so. Yeah. It doesn't help either one of us. The numbers, it's not beneficial to do that. Yeah. And if by chance that we can stay off of those dates on each other for any tournament trail, it's just better, because there is crossover. Let's say what it is. There's crossover for some.
You're a bass fishing fan. You watch everything.
You watch everything. So yeah. So we don't want that. If we book around tournaments. We change tournament dates if we know that they're on a certain date. We're on a certain date. We would think that they would do the same, because it's not good for anybody. And especially when you have sponsors that are attending both events, then the sponsor has to flip a coin and say, well, which one I'm going to go to. So yeah, that all goes into it. And these are business decisions that are made, not just because of the fishing quality. As we get into the schedule, I know some of the bass heads here, are thinking we're talking about, money and stuff, but fishing's a huge part of it. And even going to Rayburn in the first event of the Tackle Warehouse Invitational next year. Rayburn's a great fishery. We had a Toyota Series event where a fellow New Yorker, I'm from the Adirondacks originally, but a fellow New Yorker, put a hammer, Alec Morrison, 73 pounds. I mean, huge. You just had a 2-day BFL there, the super tournament. Michael Neal won on the pro circuit before in 22, and Attifo won in on the BPT in 21. Rayburn is just legendary. It's just one of those, Rayburn, Toledo Bend, Gunnersville, Toho, Santee Cooper.
I look at them like baseball stadiums. You have Wrigley Field, you have Yankee Stadium, you have some that no one's ever going to say, oh, I can't believe you're going there. I think it provides some stability, and it might not be every year, but two times ever in 4 years, and you can kind of rotate them. But there's those legendary that, you can't recreate the feeling of that by completely switching it around. So I like the repeats on that. Like you were mentioning, a Rayburn, a Toledo Bend, a Gunnersville, a Thousand Islands. Those are kind of standards.
We've got an additional challenge with Major League Fishing, is because of our catch, weigh, and release format on the Bass Pro Tour. The challenge is that we need to have exceptional cell phone coverage in order to go to some place. And I won't say the name of a couple of these fisheries. And we've done some team series and cup events there in the past. But we had some places that we said, oh, we're going there. We had bids from places that we had to turn them down because the cell phone service wasn't good enough.
Like a Champlain is a nightmare.
It is, but it's good. It's good enough for doing. We did it there a couple of years ago, but there are some places that you're like, oh man, how come they haven't gone there? The reason might be self-service, and until they get some more towers in there, and candidly, there's going to be some spots in Toledo Bend. There's going to be some spots on Santee, and there's going to be some spots on the Shawan River that we need to figure out. And part of the rules is some of the fans may know is that if a guy goes into an area and he loses cell phone coverage, the rule as it is right now is that he's got about 15 minutes to get out of there because it's part of the competition. The other anglers need to know if he's catching fish at a certain time, if they need to make adjustments. So if it's not a zoned off area and for whatever reason there are you go out of coverage, they've got a time until they get out of there. And that plays a factor into where we go as well.
One more kind of topic I want to talk about on the selection factor, then we'll take a first break of the day, and then we'll come back with Michael Mulone, one of the schedule makers for the BPT, the Invitationals.
So.
Yeah, a schedule. Here's the other thing that I hear a lot of, and I think there might be a thread of truth to it, but not nearly as much as there are certain anglers who are very influential who call up and they say, hey, we need to go here, and then they know the schedule before it's out, and then these anglers could do whatever they want before the off limits go into place, and it's basically handpicked by some anglers who have great influence. And like I said, I heard this with bass. I know for a fact you heard this with bass, and it's carried right over to MLF, and it's perpetuated not only by educated fans but also by other people in the field who they go to Rayburn and they'll go, well, hell, of course. Well, Todd Faircloth probably freaking put that one on the schedule. That's probably a hand-picked one by him. I mean, I'm sure you hear that. How much truth is there into that?
Yeah, I heard it too, even recently, and I joked with him about it because we do have a site selection committee with a handful of anglers on it, and in one of the last times, and then and I'll mention some names of guys who have given input that it's an open process. And in fact, at the last meeting in Bay City, I went to the guys and said, hey, listen, we're having a site selection meeting after this to kind of just ask a couple of questions because I've got some variances. We had the schedule done in June, and we had to work on some surveys and worry about some weather and different things. So yes, there are anglers that have input to say, here are some suggestions of where to go, but until it's done, it's not done. But I joked with Wheeler, and I'm like, dude, everybody thinks we're going to Lanier. He's like, why? I'm like, because you were there, and they think that because that you went to Wheeler, you went to Lanier, that we're going there. So
that he knew something that no one else did, and he was on there pre-practicing before the schedule came out. Okay, I see.
I'd love to go back to Lanier. Lanier in late February would be just outstanding. Oh,
geez, that'd be freak show.
But when they don't, and we're obviously working with a variety of anglers, and everybody's really excited about this year's schedule. So we'll take that break and we'll go to the next one. How's that?
Sounds great. All right, we will be back. First break. It is Tuesday, August 29th. Michael Mulone from MLF will be back right after this.
The new Puma STS has been redesigned from the ground up. With the angler, design, function, and performance in mind, nothing on this new offering was compromised, and the only thing carried over from the previous version is the name. Based on the Soft Touch series hull that started with the flagship Jaguar, this new model is nimble and performs incredibly well at all speeds with either a 250 or 300 horsepower engine. Featuring a new 96-inch wide-body footprint, this hull measures out at 20 foot 7 inches in length. Industry-leading design coupled with tournament-winning performance. The Puma STS from Basscat. Feel the rush.
Everything you need, one legendary brand. Top on Strike King.
Series Pro Daryl Gleason here. My Pro Guide batteries keep me going on those long tournament days and long practice days. Always plenty of juice, never fail. The best part about Pro Guide batteries, it's the people behind the company. They have over 40 years experience in the battery business, keeping all of us fishermen out on the water longer, catching more fish. Check them out at ProGuideBatteries.com.
What's up, Bass Talk Live fans? Brandon Polnick here. And ever since I won a couple Bassmaster Elite Series events on X-Zone Lures, I've been getting a bunch of questions of what makes them so special and different. And really, the truth is, it's in the details. The little details, things like no cheap fillers in their plastic. That gives you more lifelike action, more realistic and vibrant colors. But don't just take my word for it. Go to www.xzonelures.com and check them out for yourself.
Shoreline Boat and RV, dock rash, storm damage, collision repair, that deep scratch or gouge from trying to access that secret creek. Shoreline Boat and RV can get your prized possession back in mint condition and looking good on the water, fast. All repairs are done in-house, so they're able to get your boat or RV back to brand new, quickly. All Shoreline's work comes with a rock-solid warranty. Find out more at shorelineboatandrv.com. Kansas City, Austin, and Tulsa. All right, welcome back, BTL, on a Tuesday. See, I've already got people on instant feedback saying, well, I don't believe that the only reason you had two events ending in Michigan this year, or to the event ending in Michigan this year, is because KVD was retiring.
So Kevin retired and announced the day before practice.
Yeah, you guys changed it so it would be Saginaw Bay would be his last one.
Of the first event. Yeah.
If
I had known that,
it's fixed.
That's Johnny Carson and Kreskin stuff for you old guys. No one had to do that beforehand. It worked. Hey, listen, it worked out great, and obviously, and what an awesome finish to see Kevin right up there at the end. Bay City is a fantastic town. Saginaw is a great destination, Saginaw Bay. And we're going back to Detroit, just out of a different city for the tech warehouse for next year. So, I mean, it's on the rotation. We'll go back to Cayuga. We'll go back to Champlain on the BPT. We'll do all those things. So there are some places that we'll return to. There's some places that we'll take a longer break from. And that's just part of it. But, of course someone said that.
All right, here's the schedule. We'll start out with the one that starts first, which is the Bass Pro Tour.
Okay.
How much of a factor do you guys play when you figure out when to start the year? Because obviously the earlier you start the year, the bigger bump you get because you got a lot of people that are cabin fever, but you also then limit the location of the fisheries you can go to tremendously, especially when you start in January, early February.
Yeah, it's a bit of a gamble, especially on the first two. We know that weather could play a factor. A couple years ago, we did the northern Louisiana lakes, Darbonne and Caney, and then Bussy. Had some ice problems with that, but look what it did for those fisheries. They showed out. It was unbelievable. Toledo Bend's one of those places that it could be fantastic, and even when it's cold. So it does play a factor into it. We also have to kind of back our way into it, and it's almost necessary to start with Red Crest. And we're doing it the St. Patrick's weekend ending on Sunday the 17th in March on Lay Lake, and then build it from there.
Okay.
In 25, we're going to be in Huntsville, end of the month of March. So we'll build it from there. We'll book around Easter for that. We'll put that in. We don't want to plan an event the week after Easter because that means that guys have to travel on Easter Sunday. So that takes those weeks out. And again, we're going to peel it all back. If I know what the classic dates are, I'm not going to book on top of the classic if I can't help it. And it's just what it is, that things changed in the past couple of years, that some dates changed, that from what I saw. And sometimes you can't help that because this is what the city has and you have to go at that date. So we're not trying to book on top of anything on purpose. So you look at those factors of when these things are happening. The other one that you have to keep into consideration as well, that talking about the sports events, and in fact, I think in 24 or 20 or maybe 25, when the Final Four is.
Oh yeah.
Final Four is the end of March, early April. That's another factor as to what that is. And sometimes you just can't help it. You can't help to be on top of another tournament. You can't help it to have to do a tournament after.
But if there's no hotels available and everything's already booked out, like I mean, if you've got
eyeball, I don't want to compete for eyeballs.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's true. You did this job as a choice. Like you've been doing this. You knew like right out of the gate that your entire job, like you get paid to deal with logistical nightmares. Like it sounds fun. Oh, we're gonna travel around. We're going to all these nice fisheries. We're gonna go out on a pontoon. We'll be like, yeah, let's go here. Then we're gonna book it. This sounds massive anxiety inducing to me.
Have you seen? I used to have a beautiful head of hair.
This is my nightmare, Michael. This would be a nightmare for me.
Yeah, I mean it's part of kind of the puzzle pieces we put together. And oh, by the way, Bass Pro Tour, Red Crest, Tackle Warehouse Invitationals, Toyota Series Championship,
can't be on top of
BFLs. We're doing our team between team our tournament team in Benton and our production team based in Tulsa. We are go, and kudos to not just the tournament crew, but everyone on our team at Major League Fishing who just they pound the pavement and they are road warriors doing this. So it's not an easy gig. People are like, oh my God, how cool is that? It is. It's really cool. We get to work in a sport that's with our passion. I've been fishing since I was a kid up in the Adirondacks, fishing for smallmouth on a bunch of lakes, in the base of the Adirondacks. It's unbelievable to do this. I worked in the hotel industry and CBBs, and it just kind of putting all those things together. But for everybody who works in the tournament business, it's a grind. It's a lot, whether you're one of the service guys that are there first thing and staying late, or, you're the spouse of one of the anglers, making sure that everything's all ready when the guys get off the water. It's a tough road.
All right, I want to highlight a couple. There's some good fisheries. It's a really good schedule. I've heard a lot of positive things about it, which I would not say if that was not the case, because sometimes they come out and you're like, it's very vanilla, but there's a couple on here that really piqued my interest. The first one, April 9th through 14th on Dale Hollow. That one, I'm really looking forward to. That should be a lot of historical significance in the world of bass fishing that really hasn't been talked about much in the past 20 years.
Yeah, and really what kind of deterred things from happening really was that slot limit of where it is and kind of its location, being kind of northern Tennessee area that it's not a heavily populated area, first off. So that's the first thing. By the way, for the viewers who haven't seen it, there was a pretty bad fire at Sunset Marina there. So please keep everybody there in their thoughts. I mean, they took one gentleman there was injured a little bit. So, that's first and foremost over everything else. But, and we've talked about this. And in fact, the last time I was on with Ken Duke, and Ken and I worked together back at ESPN and Bassmaster. And I remember Ken, when I first started doing the job, he said, Michael, if you ever get us to Dale Hollow, it'd be great. And it never happened because of the slot and circumstance and the whole thing. And I remember watching the Major League Fishing Cup events, and they went to Dale Hollow before I joined the company. And I'm like, oh, okay, because it's catch, weigh, and release, and it just opens the game for that. So ever since then, when I joined the company, this has been on my radar screen. In October, in a month and a half, it'll be 5 years I've been with Major League Fishing. This is the one, my big one too. I can't wait. This one, this is, smallmouth, largemouth. It's great time of year. We're not exactly right on top of. It's not going to be a pre-spawn. It's just going to be a good time to go. And you combine that with the fact that there is a slot limit, that there's not a whole lot of tournament pressure for how good this fishery is. And as you mentioned, it's legendary. World record smallmouth at one point. I think like mid 50s of 11, 12 pounds, something like that. So it's fabled. It's a fabled fishery that really hasn't seen a high level professional tournament of this magnitude. And, we did the survey again. We obviously surveyed it before when we did that for the Cups years ago, but we went back and surveyed it again. And that was part of the process, that Mike Jenkins, our assistant tournament director, brings his boat there, has someone with him most of the time, and does a lap around the lake and right from the coves and everything, and goes everywhere to see. And we keep track, and you guys have seen it on the live stream, the score tracker unit and the stat unit that's at the back of the boat. They're mounted in the back of the boat, and that checks the cell signal, and it checks AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile, maybe Sprint, I think, if I can remember correctly. And it basically is like a music mixer. It puts them all together, saying, all right, what's the best service? And we can determine whether or not the fishery has it, or, hey, it's great for AT&T, but not good for Verizon. And that decision was made. So Dale Hollow is mine for a lot of reasons. I can't wait to go there. And only Major League Fishing can do it. You know, Bass Pro Tour, catch, weigh, and release. It's going to really highlight it, and it's going to make some huge decisions as to what guys go for. Because there hasn't been any big tournaments there, unless a guy is passing through when he wants to go, there really hasn't been a reason for our guys to go to Dale Hollow. So it'll be interesting to see how the best anglers in the world are fishing on such fishery.
The next one, near and dear to my heart, Lake Eufaula, Oklahoma. And like I said, we're 2/3 of the way through the Eufaula events this year. I'm sure you're aware of it. I'm sure the general public is. It's been an interesting path to bring professional bass fishing to Eufaula, Oklahoma over the past year. But I was very encouraged to see it back on the schedule for next year based on some of the things that happened. I thought it was probably a one and done, but really cool to see that there are some people that stepped up there and saw value in bringing professional level tournaments to that fishery in Oklahoma.
Yeah, they did. And, you know, and seeing that time of year, Kelly Jordan won. I've got the date here, so I'm looking at everything. And you can see I have to go back a little bit because my eyesight is, I'm not wearing my reading glasses here, so I can put these out and just kind of lean back a little bit. Kelly had 57 pounds in April, 3-day event, qualified for Red Crest for it. And obviously, you know, it's just one of those places where, you know, it may not have been on everybody's radar, but suddenly it is. And, you know, the main thing is that fishery continues to get taken care of, that, you know, tournaments start going there more frequently and inject some more money into it. And then it's kind of a self-fulfilling thing where hopefully that will continue. The quality of the fishery will continue to improve, and it'll help the general economy there. So great people down there. We've talked to the city folks and some great businesses in town that have been involved. You know, our friends with Epic Baits are not too far from there as well. Yep, so
Brian Knighton.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's great having, you know, Brian there to we can make a phone call and ask him some questions. I've really enjoyed getting to know him over the past few years. So we're really excited about that one too, because it hasn't been on anybody's radar, really from a big tournament, but now it's starting to, and we'll, I think it'll be a nice kind of mix in between, because we go from that one and then we go to heavy hitters, Toho in May. And I'll tell you how late May. So first Bass Pro Tour event, late January 2019. Put the schedule together when I first started in the first days of joining in October 19. And it's okay, we need to put a schedule together for next year. And like, okay, that was the shortest window I think ever of putting a major trail together. But we nailed it, actually, because we had some fantastic fisheries. We had a lot of help from around our team to put that together. We went to Toho at the typical time. You know, it was that late January, early February. That's when all that goes. And Mark from Big Toho Marina pulled me aside. He said, "So when are you coming back in May?" And I'm like, "What?" You know, I've been like, "What do you mean May?" He says, "Oh, you're missing it." He says, "May is so good here." And I'm like, "All right." I'm like, well, the guy, you know, runs Big Toho Marina. And I actually reached out to JT about it afterward. And JT is obviously one of JT King, our talent, and everybody knows JT, and Florida guy. He was like, "Dude, yeah, absolutely." He says, "Toho in May is legit." So kept on the radar. We actually did, when we had the COVID year, we did our heavy hitters down there in June. It was pretty toasty, but fishing was great. You know, Jordan Lee had a fantastic event there. So we're really hopeful about that one.
And then let's get to the one that everyone wants to talk about, the Shawan River
Yeah.
Tapped on it a little bit in the first part of the show, but this is an absolute wild card. It's kind of like Bussy Break and those other North Carolina ones were when it first went up there and everybody went, holy cow. And now everyone knows about it, but kind of fill us in on what that one's going to be like June 4th through 9th out of Edenton, North Carolina.
Yeah. So the folks in Edenton, this was literally a 2-year process in talking with them and just kind of getting them used to kind of what we are, sending them a lot of information, videos and clips, and talking about the anglers and what we do beyond just doing a tournament. Because if you are a destination like this and you've only hosted those regional tournaments, it's like, well, it's just another tournament until they really lean into it and realize that there's so much more to it. I think it's going to be really interesting to see where two things. One, cell phone coverage on it, because there's some areas that we know they're going to be a little bit of a challenge, and trying to figure out kind of how these guys maneuver and figure this out. And this is going to be one that fans are going to have to pay attention to this one. I don't think forward-facing sonar is going to play into it as much as it has in other tournaments. I think long runs are going to, make a big factor. That guys are going to say, I've got a spot over here, but then I've got a spot way the heck over there. And, decisions will have to be made on this. So I think because it's a new fishery and they don't have a lot of knowledge of it, because it's so wide and there's so many different backwaters to it, that's going to play just a huge factor in the decision process. So, you think about anglers and how they are breaking down water and what they're doing. Mm-hmm. And you talk about, fantasy fishing and, what guys you're looking to. I look at something like that. This is a mental event on that one. You've got to make good decisions on this. The local guys know it because, they've been there and they're going to figure it out because they've been there so many times. But I think that's one of the cool things about Major League Fishing that we've been able to do, going to places around Raleigh, going to Bussy Break and Darbone and Caney Creek. When we did our Cup event, our first Team Series event, and went to Alexandria, Minnesota, and, new waters like that. I think, being able to do this catch, weigh, and release and the format that we have, that's our secret sauce. And leaning into that more and really enjoying that process, that's going to really show out for the anglers and seeing what they need to do to win and be competitive at that event. That's going to be a tough one. It can, depending where you go, title, brackish, all of those things play into it. So anybody's game, but when we're seeing 25 plus bags, in late spring there, and to think about what our guys can do on that, it's going to really highlight that destination, just like we've done other places, and put them on the map.
I like it. And then wrap things up on Thousand Islands like in the past. Let's jump over to the invitation.
Messina. We're going
out of Messina. Okay.
We're going to Messina. And the other part of it, obviously, in between going to Richmond. So we're ending with Three Rivers there.
I guess you are.
Yeah. So, complete, you could talk about a mixed bag in your bag, but you got a mixed bag of
James River will be good.
Yeah. Great time to go there.
Yep.
It'll show up and our guys are going to have
that place has some giants in it. That's even nationwide, such an underrated fishery. I fished it a couple times in the opens, and you have to fish it for a slugfest. If you're not catching 3 to 5 pounders, you're like behind the 8 ball. It's like mid-20s, and you get out there and you're like, this should be like a little river deal where 10 to 12 is good, but man, they freaking jack them on the James.
Yeah, that's one of those places where it's like you don't think about that being a big fishery, a big fish fishery. And it's been for a while, and I've been bringing events there for a number of years. Mm-hmm. It's a really cool place. But as a part of it, when it came to it, just like any other river system, we had to survey that, and we've done Toyota Series events, and we did the we do BFLs there, of course, but we needed to survey that. So for us, we want to get the schedule out earlier than we did, but we've got such a process to put into it that sending it out last week was great. We're glad we got it out. Great host there, and the folks in Virginia and Richmond, and I think it's going to be a great time of year to go there.
All right, the Invitationals, by far the most talked about stop, is the return, I guess, to the home of old FLW where it was. It used to be every single year they've been through Asian carp, big head carp. There's no fish left. You can only catch smallmouth. It's on a comeback. It's flooded. It's low. It's been through freaking everything. It's back on a professional schedule, and that is Kentucky Lake in mid-April. Talk about the decision to give that pond another shot.
Yeah, I mean, listen, we know it's not the Kentucky Lake of old, and everybody knows that of what it is. But is it on the mend? Absolutely. And are we going there at a really good time? Yes. We that's the other part of it. So we want to give it its due. We want to give it an opportunity to highlight it as best as possible. It's still a great fishery. There's still plenty of water there. But I think we'll be surprised with some of the numbers that we'll see, because it has been on the mend. They're definitely on the trending back, and it deserves the national attention. And if nothing else, it's going to highlight the ups and downs of it. And this is part of what the reality of it is. And we're talking about we're going to Eufaula, Alabama. We're going, and just read my list so I don't forget anybody.
Champlain, Detroit River. West Point was a throwback. There's been a couple elite series in the past.
Talk about West Point. So we can go to big fisheries all the time. There's nothing wrong to go into a place that's going to take 15 to 17 a day. That's not there's. I think sometimes because we have this great technology, the best anglers, we have all the best tackle, that if you don't get 20 pounds, it's not worth even watching. And I think that's a disservice to the industry, and especially to all the other guys that live at lakes all around the country, that they're happy to catch 15. There's nothing wrong with catching 15 pounds of fish at a day, or even 14, because
that's a 3-pound average. Who isn't happy catching 5 3-pounders in a day?
And now, just the same, if it's good competition, it's a tight race and it's a tight weigh-in at the end for the Tackle Warehouse Invitational, and you got 2 guys standing there, that's great drama. And you talked about West Point Lake, and that was 2013 that the bass went there, and I was part of that. And
it's 10 years ago.
And since then they've stocked with F1s. They've put some new habitat in there.
Oh, I didn't know that.
The city and the region and the state have been putting a concerted effort in there. It's like, man, they deserve a chance to put themselves back on the national stage. And that's what we want to do at Major League Fishing. We want to give these cities and their fisheries as much due as possible. We know it's not going to be a slugfest with huge bass, and you're not going to catch, 7-pound smallmouth one after another, or 8-9 pound largemouth like we did in Bussy Break. It's not going to happen to everyone, and that's okay. There's more to it than just that, and those are great destinations. LaGrange is a great town. They got a great chamber of commerce there with wonderful people that I've known for a really long time, and it's our responsibility to move this around too. We can't just we joke about it. It's like, oh, it's a great place. It's a great tournaments because it's new. It's some different places that are on the radar, but we got to move it around a little bit too. We got to keep it fresh. We have to give some different looks to it. If you don't want it to get stale on anything. So.
There was there was a couple stops I remember when I was writing for Bass Zone, and with the other writers, we would kind of have a contest to see who could write the most accurate story before the tournament even happened. We're like, here's what's going to happen. This is going to happen. This is what it's going to take. This guy, this guy, this guy, and you could nail it. So I like the unknown. I think they're two of the two. There was one schedule a couple years ago that was like a mega slugfest. Like every single one of them was like, dude, I think it might take 100 pounds to win this event. I remember it, but I can't remember what year it was. But other than that, this is the best combo.
Pick a Bass Pro Tour event. And let's do it.
Okay. Let's pick. Which one? You pick one for me, and we'll try. I can't really do it because the Toledo Bend one.
Yeah, Toledo Bend in that time of year,
there's a lot of unknown on this schedule. A lot of unknown. Obviously the St. Lawrence, exactly what you're going to get at the St. Lawrence, but it's the St. Lawrence. That's the Yankee Stadium of bass fishing right now.
Sure.
The James that time of year is going to be a little bit tough. Obviously, the story is going to be: is it going to go down in the Chick? and how is the vegetation going to look on that? But we've also seen, I think, like, in the Appomattox and some of the other areas on that river, that time of year, it's going to be a little bit more of a grind. If you're that one's going to be how much the chick is going to play. I think you're either going to have, and we saw with what Nick LeBrun did the last time they went there, like you're either going to have a bunch of your top 10 out of there, or it's going to be really distributed.
You play fantasy fishing?
I do.
All right. So that's one of those places that time of year that when I'm looking at that, I'm actually looking geographically for the anglers as much as their fortes,
Yeah. Understanding solidity content, tides, that type of thing.
Yep. So, and what guys are from Virginia or even North Carolina, Pennsylvania, what guys have had just a little bit more experience there to do that. So, you think of Thrift and you think of Matt Becker, who may have been down there or who has, been there that time of year that's off the beaten path, when it may not have been a tournament. You think of Avina, that's an East Coast guy. So, I played that into it as well. So those would be kind of my, top four for the James that time of year next year.
Yeah, that's strong. I mean, Eufaula is going to totally depend on water level that time of the year. You're either going to have, it's going to be during the spawn, but that lake is also can get up in the bushes and the willows that time of year. We saw in the Invitational a lot of long runs. We saw the clean water play. We saw guys top 20 in some of the creeks. So yeah, it's a good deal. So I want to I have one question to close this on, and it's the only. You can't have a schedule maker on the show without asking this question. So is there anything else you want to get in here before we get to that burning question, Michael?
I'll say that we're close on the other schedules that are coming out. So stay tuned. Keep coming to MajorLeagueFishing.com and follow our social pages where we've got more coming with that. Again, it's a long process. In 19 tournaments in the Toyota Series with the championship. The BFLs are looking really good at what we're doing with that. We're excited about kind of how that goes and how that series continues to grow. Our team is just doing a fantastic job of just keeping those things running. Just a well-oiled machine out of our team. I'm so proud to have them. So, right now we're gearing for that, and then we're gearing up for Red Crest. We've got some fun announcements coming up with that. Some things we'll be doing with Red Crest in Birmingham. Be a great fishery on Lay Lake for that. And I'm actually doing site visits for future events already. So the process continues, and we're going to keep it rolling. So fire away.
Oh, this is side. You said you're doing side events. I would love to see a return to Beaver Lake. It'd be a great grinder tournament. There's so much history there with so many of those guys on the BPT. That's a complete. So between the last time they came in this time, it's a completely different game. With the forward-facing sonar, with the way that fishery is developed, like I would love, and half of the guys would probably murder me for saying that, and the other half would probably give me a bear hug.
Yeah, and that's exactly what happened because we've been looking at it. We've been talking about going back, and I'll tell you how that happened. And to go back to your other question about how much of the anglers are involved in it. So it was actually 2 years ago, I think now, that we were in Detroit, last event of the year. We had a festival going on, and Suggs is working around there, some of the sponsor booths, and he gave me one of those. When anglers want your attention, they grab you by the just above the elbow when you're not looking, and they want to get you. And I'm like, what is like you're getting ready for a bar fight. And Suggs grabbed me, he pulled me in close, and he's an awesome guy. I love him. Yeah. He's like, I got one for you. I'm like, okay, what do we got? He says, we got to go back to Beaver. I'm like, all right, okay, I'm listening. And he said, he's like, listen, it's like, is it going to be as big as some of the other places we've been to? No. He says, but it's a mix. It's something different. It's legendary for our sport and for our company. And I'll say it. It's on the radar. We're talking about it. We know what it's going to be and what it's not going to be. But yeah,
I mean, who doesn't want to see Cody Meyer throw a shaky head in Prairie Creek? Let's be honest here.
everybody else, the other 79 guys. Yeah.
I would be interested to see what it's like with the sitting timber, especially the time of the year that you picked there. I mean, we saw Mark Pack win it, flipping up above the river in mud. We've seen was it Matt Airy and stuff with jigs, and on that we've seen the who was it from Alabama with the buzz bait as it came up 8 foot overnight. We've seen the finesse stuff play with the forward facing sonar. Now I think it'd be interesting.
It's one of those where it deserves another look. Maybe we start there with a tackle warehouse, or coming back for another Toyota event. But it's definitely on the radar, and we welcome suggestions from everybody. And and conversely, one of the sad things you have to be aware of is when something doesn't do well. If a storm comes through, there's a major kill off. The state fisheries department decide to spray excessively. We find out about those things too. So you have to look at both sides of the coin to make sure that we're ahead of the game when it comes to that kind of stuff. But it's all part of the process.
All right, you ready for the biggest question that has been 56 minutes and 57 seconds talking about schedules without, well, it's typical because they feel ignored anyway. It's the West Coast. The West Coast. So many good fisheries out there, so passionate. It's been a minute.
You think?
How? I don't even know what to ask about it because it's been asked every single year.
Yeah.
What's the deal with it? Is it a money deal? Is it a fisheries deal? Is it a, hey, everyone wants it out there, but then it's not supported when it actually goes out there? Is it we just don't want to spend the money to go out there? Is it the anglers don't want to go out there? I mean, there's a million different theories as to why it's been ignored for every single major organization. The last time the Elite Series had it on the schedule, there was basically an angle.
2015.
Well, no, they had one on the schedule later in like 19 or 20, and the anglers were like, "Yeah, we're not going out there," and they freaking changed it.
Yeah, that was.
They had like the Columbia River, I think, and one of the others, which I was like super jacked about. I was like, "This is going to be awesome to watch." And then all of a sudden it was like, yeah, this was met with some rabid resistance and they changed it up.
There's a whole, after I retire, I'll tell you that whole story.
Okay.
Because that was there's some behind the scenes stuff on that it's unfortunate. And that was part of a lot of factors.
But you guys haven't been out there with MLF in the past 5 years either. And there's such a percentage of the field that's from there that would be homecoming. That would be great stories from Skeet to Cody to Brent, all the guys out there.
All right. So Skeet is Auburn, and Cody is in Idaho, right?
Cody's he's he's in Idaho now. You had Luke Clausen, who's originally
he's from Washington. And then Brent and Josh, they're both down in Arizona.
Yep.
Dean and Roy.
Yeah, a bunch of Arizona. Dean Rojas. You got a bunch of guys.
So that same area that you mentioned from Clausen down to Rojas is the equivalent of Messina to Toho when it comes to it from a location standpoint. So it's the entire West Coast. It's massive. And maybe even longer, depending on mileage.
We can fit a couple derbies in there, can't we? That's a lot of space to have good tournaments, Michael.
Yeah. Here's the challenge. And in fact, Boyd was on your show like about a year or so ago saying, because I'm not sure if Mark was on still at the time.
It would have been Mark.
It's about the support. It's about the distance. It's about the distance between the distance to go there, the distance for the fisheries between the fisheries. It's just not an easy proposition for what's out there. Mm-hmm. We talked about the host destinations, of course, in the entire call. There's not a lot of host cities that are spending big dollars out there because a lot of those great fisheries are not in big areas. That's difficult as well. We can't just go to the West Coast for one tournament. It's got to be multiple tournaments. And then there's a factor. Do you go to Shasta and then to Havasu?
Mm-hmm. Well, then it would have to be back to back because you can't have them out in California for a month.
Exactly. And now you have to drive between the two. and your expenses for everybody just skyrocketed. And then does it really move the needle for that? The sad news is this. There are some incredibly passionate, fantastic fisheries, passionate guys, fantastic fisheries, but the whole part of it just doesn't fit right now. Is there a potential for the future? Absolutely. But it just doesn't fit for where it is. And we want to grow and go to different areas, but it just doesn't fit for where it is. And then, let's talk about kind of what's happening with the Delta right now. The Delta's in rough shape right now, with all the seals of all things. I spoke to Ish at ICAST, and Ish gave me some great contacts for some different places. And we're looking at Toyota Series events to going back out there and doing more with that. But numbers are numbers. And at the end of the day, this is a business. And if we had a sponsor or multiple sponsors, hey, listen, we can't ignore this anymore. If we had fisheries and destinations that saying, hey, listen, we want you out there. And if we had a wide breadth, more than 50% of the anglers saying, hey, listen, we need to do it. We would probably be doing it. I would imagine the other tournament trails be doing it too. Maybe they'll go and they'll kick it off and do it. We're not ignoring it. It's not a slight. It's not something that we don't care about them. It's just the business of it that right now, I just got gas yesterday because we got the storm coming in Florida, and thankfully they're on top of it, price gouging and everything. But gas is still $3.79 a gallon still, and these guys are getting.
And when you get out to California, which I was just there 2 weeks ago, it's $5.60 a gallon.
Yeah, it's $3.79 in Florida. So I was going to ask you that. What's it in California?
Yeah, I was just out there. It was insane.
Yeah. So, with due respect to everybody in California, we love you. We appreciate you. We're grateful for your passion for the sport. And it's just not one of those things that is something that we could put on the radar at this point. But we want to keep coming with Toyota Series events and other things. And obviously there's some great fisheries and great places, but to put it all together like that, it's just not something we're doing next year.
Fair assessment. You did mention the storm. I do want to say, by all means, when I set this up and called Joe to say, hey, I want to do this, he's like, he's the ultimate professional. There is a Category 3 hurricane bearing down on him, but he'll be good to go. And I was like, are you sure? And he's like, yeah, 99% sure. I mean, you getting your hurricane preparedness. I mean, it doesn't sound like a Category 5, but 3's pretty nothing to joke about.
I think 3 is like in the 110, 120 range.
That's pretty strong. If that was a BPT event, you would allow trailering.
Well done. I see what you did there. But we're keeping an eye on it. And hey, listen, when it comes right now, it's north of us. I live just north of Clearwater. Right now it's scheduled to be just north of us, but we're looking at a storm surge that could be pretty high along the coast. I live about 3 miles from the coast. It can mess things up pretty badly. The other thing for you fishermen in all parts of the country, full moon tonight, super moon, not a good thing to have when you're in a tidal destination and there's a hurricane bearing down on you. So that's going to play a factor. Our daughter is up at Tallahassee at Florida State, and we're kind of hoping it splits the difference between us and goes into some of those non-populated areas or less populated areas. So we're, our prayers with everybody. Right now we're getting the house kind of together and just kind of moving things in a little bit closer to all the patio furniture and stuff, extra ice. And it's just part of living down here in paradise, but it's going to be problematic wherever it hits.
That's a shame. Where you mentioned just north of Clearwater, you probably have been to Pass a Grill before.
Yes.
Dude, my grandma had a condo at the Islands End Resort there at the very tip of Pass a Grill. You know where I'm talking about? The very tip. Okay. There's that apartment. There's the jetty there that if I was a independently wealthy, one of the things that I would do is I would put $2 million to get that jetty fixed. It's my fondest childhood memories are catching pompano and whiting and sheep's head off of that jetty right there.
Oh, that's awesome.
She had an apartment in that apartment complex. It's at the very end of the jetty on the third story. And I spent all my summers there and I still go back there every single year. Actually, I just talked to my mom. She's like, hey, we booked at Islands End December 1st through 13th. You're going to be able to come
Oh,
down
they
for
still
any
have
days.
it?
No, they don't have it. We stay at that Islands End Resort now. They sold it. We had an opportunity to buy it in like the 90s for like $200,000, and they were like, "Oh, that's that. No, we're not going to buy an apartment or a condo for 200,000." And now, now it's what it's like down there now. But that is one of my top 3 favorite places on earth is Pascagoula, Florida.
Yeah, I went out fishing. So I live just kind of north of there, probably about 30 minutes north of where that is as the traffic goes. Went out fishing on Sunday with a friend. We got out, at 6 o'clock in the morning. We were out and catching sunrise. And we went about 8 miles off and found some rock piles and loaded up on some snapper. And it was not easy because the water's so warm and it's summertime in Florida. You got to find your spots. And that's part of the hurricane part of it too, is that the water's warm, so it's got a lot of energy. But we live in a beautiful area, great fishing all around here. Just the other direction, literally a half a mile from my house is Lake Tarpon, and Christian Greco, one of our guys.
We've had him on the show before.
Yeah. So he fishes. He lives on the other side of Tampa, so he fishes over here from time to time. And in fact, there's a Tuesday nighter that they of course canceled for today. That they get in here and they fish on Lake Tarpon. Great little fishery. In fact, I believe at one point Lake Tarpon held the state record for a largemouth, and they called it Lake Tarpon because before the Water Management District blocked it off, so there wasn't as much water going back and forth. Tarpon would come up and spawn up in there. So it'd be bass, snook, reds, tarpon, all
just choo, and you would have no idea what was going to destroy you.
It's actually a fantastic fishery, about 2,400 acres, just a half a mile this way. It's a really cool place. But let me know if you come down again.
Yeah, I mean, dude, I'm from Fort DeSoto, and then I also had aunt and uncle at a house down in Punta Gorda. So like that whole kind of stretch of the coast right there, very fond with. Very fond.
I used to work in Punta Gorda, so that's how I got in the biz. That I did the Redfish Cup back in Punta Gorda, and when that was going on, getting on ESPN, that's what I did. I was the local host for the Redfish Club, for the Redfish Cup. So that's what kicked it off and getting in the fishing business from the hotel in Cityside in Punta Gorda.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to let you go ahead and board up the windows and strap down that patio furniture. Call the kiddo and make sure they're okay at FSU. So, but I appreciate the time of full. Or like I said, I think I told you I'd keep you for like 30 minutes, and we're an hour and 8 minutes in. So
awesome. Is anybody still watching?
Yeah, there's a bunch of people watching.
Cool. Hey, listen, anytime. Love to have you on. Be on anytime. Let me know. Thanks so much for your support, and we appreciate everybody out there. And looking forward to seeing everybody on the season next year.
All right, stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you. See you.
See ya. All right, that is Michael Mulone with MLF and the schedules. I try to give a little bit of behind the scenes. I mean, it's cool to come on and you talk about every event, but I don't think people realize how much goes into making a schedule, whether it's an Elite Series schedule or a BPT schedule. I mean, even a club schedule. Like I've got buddies who do the assumption. I mean, there's people that complain about a 10-boat, 8-tournament club schedule. And now you're doing it with millions of dollars. You have to worry about TV, cell phone coverage, live coverage, scheduling on top. Not a job that I envy. All right, we'll take our final break of the show. And when we come back, we have a mystery. Well, it won't be a mystery because I'll tell it when we come back after the guest, but we have a very special guest. It's a head coach. We have a head coach on the show tomorrow on Wednesday. BTL will be back right after this.
The great thing about the new Sensation soft plastics from Big Bite Baits, heavily scented, super soft, buoyant, comes in 7 great new shapes. I've got a couple of them of my signature series, the cliffhanger worm and the ram-tailed craw. Great for a flipping jig, football jig, swim jig, all that. Several other great shapes. Really excited about it. We've worked over the last year, catches fish all over the country, and I think it's going to catch fish for people everywhere you try it. The Spro Little John crankbait has been around for almost 15 years, and it is one of my go-to crankbaits whenever I need a fish in the boat, so you can never have enough new colors. That's why Spro's coming out with a handful of new colors, including Pearl Shad, which has this bleached out white look, but it's got this pearlescent, really, really pretty
We've got copper shad, which looks amazing in the water. It's got that purple flake on the back, really pops in the water. And then if you want some real pop, we've got sparkle shad, nothing but sparkles all over this thing. And then last but not least, we've got the matte sexy shad, just a really different looking color for a crankbait. So you want to give them a little different look. That matte sexy shad is definitely the one to go with. All these colors are available in the original Little John and the MD. I'm the kind of guy that never leaves a house without a pocket knife, and Gamakatsu's come out with the EDC series of knives. EDC stands for everyday carry, so whether you're on the water or off, you can always have it with you. The best thing about it to me is that assisted open feature. With this D2 blade, you've got it right here at your fingertips, so if you can't find your scissors, you need to cut a knot, you need to cut your braid, you've always got it. Make sure you check it out. Never leave home without your Gamakatsu EDC knife.
Born in Japan, using technology, innovation, and precision, Sunline produces the widest selection of fishing lines at the most technologically advanced line factory in the world. Manufactured at the strictest tolerances to produce victories at the highest levels of tournament bass fishing. From household names like Christie, Swindle, and Cruz, to young guns like Cook, Logan, New, and Welcher, they all trust Sunline to take them to the top of the leaderboard. Choose the line that will give you the strength to guarantee your confidence. Sunline.
Having confidence in your tackle while on the water is one of the main things to success, in my opinion. In the last couple of years with Denali, I've had just that. From anything from spinning rods, casting rods, tungsten products, even now to casting and spinning reels, I have the confidence to go out there and get the job done and know that all my equipment is going to handle it and do it just the way I want it. The thing about Denali is you've got great quality products at a great price point, so make sure you check them out.
Have you considered purchasing new electronics for your rig? The type of mounts you choose to protect your investment should be part of the decision-making process. No matter if you prefer 1, 2, or 3 graphs up front, Beatdown Outdoors has a solution for you. Adjustable, versatile, rigid, and made in the USA. What's your ultimate electronics setup? Check out the full selection of Beatdown Outdoors products by visiting beatdownoutdoors.com. All right, welcome back. Wrapping things up here on a Tuesday. Big shout out to Michael Mulone and Joe Pogger from MLF for helping set that interview up. I thought he said a lot of interesting things specifically about the West Coast there. I mean, it sounds like it's a possibility for the future, but it has to be economically feasible. I think a lot of people forget this is a for-profit business, whether it's Bass, MLF, whatsoever. I did mention before, as teasing who's on the show tomorrow, and we're going to return to bass fishing and anything else we want to talk about, because it is none other than the creator and host of BTL for the past 17 years, up until the last couple of years, Mark Jeffries. I think he might be from his office. He has an office. I've been trying to get him on the show for the last week or two. The kids are back in school. And if you don't know, quick rundown. Retired 2 years ago, started a college bowling team at Southern Nazarene University, put on a shirt and tie, had a whole announcement ceremony with the president of the university, got funding for it, a locker room, went out to the far reaches of the United States in person and recruited both a men's and women's bowling team for SNU. First year, they're on campus. Practices started. He's got all sorts of hype videos on the SNU bowling website. He's been in budget meetings for SNU bowling. He's been meeting individually with the players. I don't even know if he's been paying attention to fishing, but I wanted to get him on, give him a chance to talk about it. And then I'll pick his brain on some hot topics that are going on in the bass fishing industry. Then on day 4, we got to give Uncle Frank a little bit of a shout out, because the man, if you're thumbing through your latest Bassmaster magazine, man's in Bassmaster, a picture of Uncle Frank holding a custom painted, I think it's an airbrushing article and stuff. So we'll talk about that. Maybe we can finagle an autographed copy of a magazine out of Uncle Frank. The other thing that I do want to put on everybody's radar, and I'll have more information on this, is the Bass Fishing Hall of Fame banquet is taking place September 28th. You do not have to be in it, a member. The general public can get tickets, information on this. I talked to some people 2 years ago, the last time I went at a tournament the past year, and they're like, no, we're just fans. We like to come here. We like to take part in it. There's a lot of big names that come to that. It's a really great historical. It takes place at Wonders of Wildlife, Johnny Morris's Bass Pro Shop, Springfield, Missouri. Great to make the weekend out of. You can go to bassfishinghof.com to find out more information about that. And then also when the online auction will open up, I can say that there will be a BTL experience that will be on that auction, which will include a little bit of travel money to get to Shawnee, Oklahoma, put you up at a hotel for the night. We'll go fishing, and then co-host sitting right across from me right here where you've seen Hallman and Matt Steffen and all sorts of guys sit in studio co-host of BTL for a day. So when that auction comes out, we also are going to have a one of a kind Frank Scalish autographed piece that you have seen on BTL. That will also be in the auction, as well as, there's trips with like Brandon Polinick and hunts and rods, reels, all sorts of stuff. So bassfishinghof.com for more information on when that opens. Other than that, big shout out to Michael Mulone and MLF for jumping on. Hey, I will say this also. As soon as the Elite Series schedule comes out, as soon as the 2023 Bassmaster Open schedule comes out, we'll do the exact same thing for the Elite Series with those guys. We'll ask the same questions. We'll go through it. We'll talk about it with the guys who decide the schedules over on the Bassmaster side. But a great show for today. We will see everybody tomorrow. For the man, the myth, the legend, the one and only Mark Jeffries, bowling coach at SNU, Southern Nazarene University, will be in. That's all we got for today. We'll see you tomorrow.